Discover the incredible journey of our Earth, unveiling the amazing secrets of its life-changing resilience. Clara Thompson awoke to the sound of her alarm slicing through the thick winter air of Maplewood, Nebraska. It was still dark outside, the frost clinging tightly to the glass and casting shimmering patterns that danced in the dim light. With a heavy sigh, she dragged herself out of bed, her body protesting against the early hour. Yet, the thought of her two children, Emma and Jake, waiting for breakfast, spurred her into action. Every morning was a battle of wills, her will against the biting cold, her will against the encroaching dread of bills filling up the mailbox, and most importantly, her will to show her children that they could count on her, no matter how straining life became. Mornings at the diner were chaotic but familiar. Clara poured coffee, flipped pancakes, and occasionally shared a laugh with regulars. Yet beneath her smiles, Clara felt the weight of her husband's absence. Deployed overseas, he was out there protecting freedom while she fought quiet battles at home against isolation, stigma, and fear. With every tip handed to her, she hid her worries like a magician concealing secrets. But whispers from the townsfolk claimed their own loudness, judging a woman striving to make ends meet. The echoes of their murmurs snaked through her heart, dulling her resolve as winter tightened its grip. Word spread through the town like wildfire. A factory nearby had leaked toxic waste into their water supply. The realization that her children's health was at risk sent Clara's heart racing. This wasn't just a passing concern. It was a call to action. She felt it burning deep within her, an unquenchable desire to protect her family. At the next town hall meeting, Clara's voice quivered, but she stood firm. "We need to talk about the water. Our kids are drinking poison," she exclaimed. The responses were harsh. Faces that once nodded in familiarity now twisted in disdain. "What do you know about it, Clara?" One voice called, mocking her. The anger hung thick in the air, mixing with Clara's growing despair. Yet, amidst the shouts, she felt a spark ignite in her chest. Some whispered in support, turning their heads to her. She couldn't retreat now. Not when the stakes were so high. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Determined, Clara began to gather others. Neighbors noticed her courage, her sheer will to fight, even if some initially ridiculed her. Clara stumbled across a forgotten map at the library, revealing the town's history and its roots in resilience. She shared this discovery, how their ancestors stood strong against formidable odds. Slowly, she saw glimmers of pride appearing in the eyes of those who had once looked away. But as Clara's hope blossomed, shadows loomed. Powerful local businesses who thrived on the factory's success began to stir. Dismissing Clara as a mere mother with frustrations was easy, but they underestimated her commitment. With her children's safety at stake, Clara knew she couldn't just stand by. Tensions rose, and that divide between neighbors began to crack wide open. Clara stood at the precipice of change, doubt clawing at her as she caught whispers of discontent among those she once called friends. Would she provoke more anger than she could soothe? Would the history she revived bring light or further widen their chasm? In that moment of uncertainty, as time stood still, she wondered if her fight for her family could unite them all against a common threat. As the clock ticked down to the day the water would be tested, Clara held her breath, waiting for the answer that could shatter everything she fought for or bind them as one forever. As the days slipped by, Clara poured her heart into preparation. Flyers filled with information about the water crisis blanketed town bulletin boards, another sign of her determination. She organized small meetings in her living room, gathering like-minded neighbors who shared her fears and frustrations. Together, they crafted letters to local officials, hoping to shine a light on the factory's negligence. There was strength in numbers, and with every meeting, Clara felt that strength grow. One evening, in the cozy chaos of her home, Clara looked around at the faces lit by the warm glow of her kitchen lamp. Each person had a story just like hers. They shared their worries about their children. And that night, the air was thick with resolve. Still, Clara felt the knot in her stomach tighten. Would this new alliance be enough to combat the powerful corporations entrenched in their town? Doubt lingered, but it was overshadowed by the fierce love she held for her family as the testing day approached. Clara couldn't shake a sense of urgency. She heard the rumors of intimidation tactics from those in charge, threats or offers intended to silence anyone who dared to challenge their authority. She knew they saw her as a nuisance, a barrier to their profits, but Clara couldn't back down now. Emma and Jake needed her fighting spirit more than ever. On the day of the test, Clara awoke with a mix of anxiety and determination. Her children still slept, their innocence wrapped in tangled blankets, unaware of the storm brewing outside. She kissed their foreheads, whispering promises of protection. Then she grabbed her coat and headed out into the bitter cold, heart pounding with both fear and courage. The town hall was packed, the air buzzing with anticipation. Clara could see it in people's eyes, some excited, some skeptical. As she stepped up to the podium, she took a deep breath. The room fell silent, and with everything on the line, the words tumbled from her lips. She reminded everyone about the health risks and the need for accountability. Your children's safety matters as much as mine, she declared, her voice growing stronger with every syllable. Less mocking looks met her gaze now. She could see people starting to nod in agreement. But just as hope surged within her, a familiar figure stepped forward, a well-dressed man representing the factory, smirking as he prepared to speak. Let us not be hasty, folks. You really think your children are in danger? He mocked, throwing a glance at Clara, as if she was the town's misguided fool. The air thickened, tension rising like a dark cloud. Clara's heart raced as murmurs spread through the crowd. Would this man's charm deflate everything she had been fighting for? Just as he began to spout statistics and half-truths, Clara decided she wouldn't let him take control. She cut him off. You can wave numbers all you want, but we're the ones drinking this water. The truth matters more than profits. Her voice echoed, fueled by the passion swirling inside her. The crowd shifted, caught between disbelief and newfound bravery. As the conversation grew heated, Clara could feel the tide turning. But in the midst of it all, a little hand tugged at her coat. Her children had arrived, eyes wide, standing by her side. The crowd softened at the sight, and for a heartbeat, Clara knew it wasn't just about the water anymore. It was about families united, standing against the tide. The man's face tightened, caught off guard. Clara whispered reassurances to Emma and Jake, who looked up at her, full of innocence and trust. But she also felt the eyes of the townsfolk drawing back to her. Whatever happens today, she thought fiercely, we'll face it together. Would she succeed in rallying the community against that looming threat? What would happen when the results came in? As the crowd grew louder, the outcome teetered on the edge of uncertainty, and Clara's heart pounded with the hope and fear of what was yet to come. Would courage be enough to challenge the giants, or would the fight burn them all in the end? Clara stood at the podium, heart racing, staring out into the sea of faces before her. She could feel the momentum swinging, the crowd caught in a whirlwind of emotions. The man representing the factory had stepped back, his confidence cracking under the weight of their collective anger. Clara felt a flicker of hope spark inside her, contagious and bright. The crowd murmured, fists clenching and voices low. Clara saw anger, disbelief, and a resolve that mirrored her own. She could sense them beginning to rise, the strength in numbers pushing against the tide of doubt and fear that had plagued the town for so long. They were ready to fight for what they held dear, their homes, their families, their water. Let us not just talk, shouted a woman from the back, her voice breaking through the murmurs. Let us demand answers. The crowd roared in agreement, and Clara felt a sense of community ignite around her. Together, Clara called back, raising her arms. Together we can change this. But just as triumph started to suffuse Clara's soul, she caught a glimpse of the factory representative whispering to a group of powerful-looking men stationed at the back of the room. They were exchanging furtive glances, and that familiar knot of unease coiled in her stomach once again. The intimidation tactics she'd heard about were not just rumors. She could see the shadows of threats dancing around their silhouettes. Clara couldn't let fear creep back in. Her children stood beside her, and they mattered more than anything. Then the flicker of doubt turned into a flame. "Friends," she said, her voice steady, "this isn't just about numbers or profits. This is our home, our children. We deserve to know the truth." With each rallying cry, more neighbors rose, fists in the air. Clara watched as her friends, those who had once been silent, now found their voices, chanting for accountability. "The water," they shouted. "Safety." The energy surged, filling the hall with something electric. Yet amidst the support, Clara couldn't shake the fear that still lingered. What if, after all this, they still weren't heard? After all the shouting and pleading, would it make a difference? The thought weighed on her, pressing against her heart. When the village mayor stepped up to address the impassioned crowd, he looked hesitant. Eyes darted between Clara and the representative, the tension palpable. Clara could hardly breathe, waiting for his words to tip the balance one way or another. "After today's test results," he began, "we will hold a formal meeting to discuss the outcome." Disappointment washed over the crowd. They wanted action now. Clara could see her neighbor's shoulders sag, the weariness creeping back in. But Clara wouldn't let it stop here. "Sir, that's not enough," she implored, stepping forward. "We demand transparency. We need this factory investigated." "Ma'am," he sighed, "you know we have protocols, but our children's lives are at stake." Clara's plea rang out, cutting through the mayor's hesitations. Gasps echoed around her, and a few heads nodded yes, they understood now. This wasn't just a bureaucratic issue. This was life. Just as Clara felt the tide starting to turn again, the factory man stepped back in, his icy smile returning. "I believe the test will reflect just fine. There's no need for panic." He shot a knowing glance at the mayor, a hint of arrogance lurking in those eyes. The crowd began to stir, emotions flaring. Clara felt a sense of urgency swell. "No more lies," she shouted, feeling the heat of the moment. "We deserve answers." With the air thickening around them, Clara knew they were at a pivotal moment. What would happen next? Would they rise together, or would they falter? As voices clashed, emotions flared, and hope hung in the balance, Clara's heart raced with the weight of their fight. Suddenly, a clap of thunder echoed outside, shaking the building. Clara looked around, and in that moment, she realized this battle was just beginning. Would they discover the truth before it was too late? Clara's heart pounded furiously as the commotion in the hall threatened to spill over. She could feel the defiance burning in the air like a storm waiting to burst. The factory representative's sneer only stoked the flames. The lightning flash outside illuminated the faces surrounding her, a tapestry of hope and frustration. "Enough with their lies," Clara cried out, emboldened. It felt as though her voice had fallen on ears primed for action. A wave of murmurs transformed into a chorus of yes. The people were ready to join her. She glanced at her children, their faces shadowed by uncertainty, yet fierce determination sparkled in their eyes. This was not just her battle. It belonged to everyone. It was about their future. "What do we want?" she shouted, raising her arms again. "Answers." The crowd roared back. "When do we want them?" Clara pressed, urgency crackling in her voice. "Now!" They bellowed together, shaking the very walls that confined them. But beneath the bold cries, Clara's heart sank. She scanned the room for the mayor, hoping he would sense the pulse of the crowd. Yet he stood awkwardly, caught between responsibility and the growing terror in the hallway. Would he stand with the people, or would he crumble under pressure? With trepidation weighing on her, Clara slid back to her original point, speaking softer now, yet every word filled with the spirit of a mother protecting her children. "I know you care," she said, locking eyes with him. "I know you see our fear, but we can't wait. The lives of our children depend on action today." Today, the factory rep stepped forward, adjusting his tie. This kind of panic is unnecessary, he stated coolly, but his facade was cracking. You'll see. The water is safe. I assure you. Clara bit her lip. Every instinct in her screamed that something was deeply wrong. Behind his polished exterior lay a truth she was desperate to uncover. What proof do we have? She challenged, standing firm. When you say safe, what does it mean? Safe for who? The room fell silent for a moment, tension crackling in the air. Eyes turned from her to the men in suits at the back, the atmosphere thick with unspoken dread. The factory representative's confidence wavered, and for a heartbeat, Clara felt the tide shift. Let us take our own samples, someone shouted from the back of the crowd. Yes, Clara called, glancing over her shoulder. Let us test it ourselves. The atmosphere lit up again, a spark igniting fresh determination. People began to shout in agreement, pushing for a move that might just unravel the truth. Clara could hardly believe the unity forming, the will to fight bubbling like a pot about to boil. She could see the fear receding from neighbors' faces, replaced by the fierce light of indignation. Then reality crashed back as thunder rolled again, but this time it felt more like a drumroll heralding unknown futures. We will not stop until we know, she declared, feeling the weight of voices behind her. What are they hiding from us? We deserve the truth. As if on cue, a sharp crack of thunder lit up the room, abruptly shattering Clara's thoughts. A massive wind whipped through, sending papers fluttering and whispering rights into chaos. Screams mingled with rage-filled chants. Hey, Clara! It was Jake, her neighbor. I mobile-fingered the reports. We need to confront them. Not just here, but out there at the factory. Clara's eyes widened. This was the key. You're right, she shouted back. But can we? Is this safe? Jake's smile shone through the tumult as he gestured outside. Together, we can confront whatever comes next. As they rallied together, the crowd surged toward the doors. The sense of unity grew stronger, interweaving hearts and souls. They wouldn't let fear dictate their future any longer. But just as they reached the threshold, Clara hesitated, a creeping doubt creeping from the corners of her mind. Would they truly be safe at the factory? Would they uncover the truth? Or was this going to end in chaos? Are we ready? She whispered, glancing back at her children. Did I end that dangerous moment? The answer clung heavy in the air, filled with both hope and uncertainty. The literal and metaphorical storm was coming. Would they withstand it together? Would the fight for truth awaken an even stronger force within them? With hearts pounding and spirits high, they took a deep breath and stepped into the unknown. Would they find the answers they desperately sought? Or would they stumble upon a darkness they hadn't anticipated? The wind howled as Clara led her neighbors through the doors, into the storm. Rain poured down in torrents, but it did little to dampen their resolve. Each step felt infinitely weighted yet liberating, as if they were throwing off the chains of complacency with every stride. Thunder echoed like a heartbeat, urging them onward. Jake stayed by Clara's side, his face set with determination. This is it, Clara. We're not turning back now, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. Right? Clara replied, feeling a spark of courage ignite within her. They splashed through puddles, the group forming an allied force against the growing darkness. The factory loomed ahead, its oppressive presence a stark reminder of their fears as they approached the gates. Clara's thoughts raced. Would their collective power be enough? Each member of this crowd brought their story, mothers, fathers, children caught in a web of uncertainty. They were not just fighting for answers. They were fighting for their lives. Suddenly, the factory doors swung open, revealing the sharp-eyed factory manager. He looked astounded to see them all gathered there, drenched yet resolute. What is the meaning of this? He boomed, the voice of authority clashing with the cries of the crowd. Clara stepped forward. We demand answers about the water. You say it's safe, but how can we trust you? Her voice cut through the pouring rain like a beacon. Heads nodded, sides moved closer. An unshakable bond formed in the shared struggle. The manager narrowed his eyes, clearly taken aback by the defiance. Enough of this nonsense. The factory's safety protocols are more stringent than you think. he yelled, his confidence cracking with each protest from the crowd. "Prove it," someone shouted from the back. The crowd exploded in agreement. Clara could feel the ground shifting beneath their feet, a swell of unity like nothing she had ever experienced. Without a hint of hesitation, Jake called out, "Let us take action. We need samples and proper tests. If it's safe, then what's so hard about letting us check?" A murmur rippled through the crowd, gaining momentum. Every face turned to Clara, looking for her guidance. For a moment, she hesitated, fear tugging at her heartstrings. Could she lead them into the depths of the storm, or would this fight lead her family to ruin? Then, she remembered the fearful faces of her children. They needed her to be brave. "We'll take those samples," she declared, her voice rising above the noise. "Together, we will find the truth." With renewed purpose, the crowd edged closer to the factory's entrance. Clara felt a wave of excitement wash over her. This felt monumental. As they surged forward, the factory representative's bluster faded, replaced by something akin to panic. But just then, a piercing alarm rang out within the factory walls, shrieking through the storm. The lights flickered ominously, casting surreal shadows. Many jumped back, fear gripping their hearts. "What in the world?" Clara whispered. The crowd fell silent, confusion swirling like the storm overhead. "Keep going," Jake urged, pushing through the uncertainty as Clara took a step forward. She looked back at her children. Their faces were taut with worry, yet something deeper shimmered there, an undeniable strength that urged her on. "What happens now?" she thought, feeling the pressures of choice press down on her. Suddenly, the factory doors creaked open wider, revealing a sight that made everyone's breath hitch. Shadows danced within, twisting into shapes that hinted at terrifying truths. Clara's heart raced, but the time for retreat was long gone. They were standing on the edge of discovery, but would they find the truth or unleash a darkness they weren't prepared to face? With one last glance at her children, she turned toward the darkness. "Let us go," she shouted, stepping into the unknown, where answers and danger awaited. But beyond the threshold, an unexpected revelation lurked. What awaited them in that staggering moment might change everything they believed. As Clara stepped into the factory, a wave of heat wrapped around her like a shroud. The air was thick and heavy, tinged with the scent of oil and chemicals. It felt alive, pulsing as if the machinery itself had a heartbeat. She squinted into the dim light, searching for anything that would explain the dread that hung in the air. "Stay close," she whispered, glancing back at the crowd that followed her. They moved in a tight formation, eyes wide, hearts pounding. Jake was right beside her, his presence a steadying force against the chaos swirling in her mind. Ahead, a narrow corridor led deeper into the bowels of the factory. Flickering fluorescent lights overhead painted the scene in stark contrasts. Shadows seemed to whisper secrets, warning them of what lay ahead. Clara could see figures moving in the distance, a mix of workers and equipment churning relentlessly. "What do you think they're hiding?" Clara muttered to Jake, her voice barely audible above the din of machinery. "Something we need to expose," he replied, determination etched into his features. "We won." T turned back now. With each step, the tension pricked at Clara's skin. The adrenaline pulsing through her veins pushed her onward, but she couldn't shake the gnawing fear in her gut. What would they find? Were they risking everything for a truth that might tear their community apart? As they rounded a corner, Clara stumbled into a vast room filled with large containers and industrial equipment. In the far corner, a window revealed a laboratory setting, scientists huddled over samples, analyzing with an intensity that sent chills racing down her spine. "Look," Jake pointed. "They're testing water samples." Clara's heart raced as she took in the frantic movements of the scientists. But their expressions told another story, one of panic and urgency. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room. Clara jumped, instinctively reaching for Jake's arm. A door had swung open, revealing a tall, imposing figure clad in a white lab coat. It was the factory manager, his earlier bravado completely evaporated. "What are you doing here?" he barked, eyes wide with fury. "Get out, now!" Before Clara could respond, another figure emerged from the shadows. A woman in a hazmat suit stepped forward, her face serious. "We can't let them interfere with the tests," she said, glancing at the manager, her voice commanding yet anxious. Clara felt a rush of defiance rise within her. "We're not leaving without answers. We deserve to know what's happening to our water." The confrontation hung in the air, thick with tension. The factory manager glared at her, his composure slipping. "You need to trust me. What you think is danger is actually for your own good." For a brief moment, silence enveloped them, and Clara felt the weight of her neighbor's eyes on her. She looked at each face, seeing fear and determination reflected back. "Trust has to be earned," she said firmly, her voice gaining strength. "And right now, we don't trust you." Before the manager could respond, the woman in the hazmat suit stepped forward again, her voice soft but firm. "They have a right to know. The water is not what we thought it was." Gasps erupted around the room. Clara's heart sank as a wave of realization crashed over her. What was the extent of the truth they were uncovering? The factory manager swore under his breath, caught between protecting his reputation and a mounting crisis. "What do you mean?" Clara pressed, feeling the urgency of the moment. The answer lingered just beyond reach, a secret threatening to unravel all that they knew. The storm outside raged on, but the tempest in the factory was just beginning. As Clara stood poised on the edge of revelation, she braced herself for the fallout. What new truths would be revealed, and at what cost? Would they be prepared for the reality that lay ahead? The shifting shadows whispered once more the answer could change everything. The tension pierced the air as Clara stepped closer, her eyes locked onto the woman in the hazmat suit. "What do you mean it's not what we thought?" she asked again, her voice trembling yet steady. The room fell into a thick silence, each of them holding their breath. The factory manager shifted uncomfortably, his arrogance now replaced with a shadow of fear. The scientist seemed to steel herself for what was to come, her brows furrowing in concentration. "We've discovered contaminants," the woman finally spoke, her words deliberate and heavy. "Chemicals that leach into the water supply from the facilities here. They're harmful more than we initially understood." Clara's chest constricted. A murmur rippled through the group behind her, a tide of disbelief and dread. She could feel the weight of their collective worry, a shared heartbeat pulsing in sync as they processed what was being revealed. "What kind of chemicals?" Jake asked, stepping forward beside Clara, his voice low but clear. "Heavy metals, toxin substances that can cause serious health issues," she continued, her gaze shifting to the factory manager. "You knew this was going on, didn't you? And you've kept it from everyone." The manager clenched his jaw, his eyes narrowing. "You don't understand. If we disclosed this, our facility would shut down. Jobs would be lost, lives would be ruined, and what about our lives?" Clara shot back, anger flaring within her. "What about the families who rely on this water? Are their lives worth less than your profits?" The woman in the hazmat suit placed a hand on Clara's shoulder, grounding her with the weight of urgency. "I know this is hard, but we have to act. We have a choice. We can either hide or fight for the truth. But hiding will only make the damage worse." As the gravity of her words settled, Clara realized this could be their moment. Here, they stood with the power to protect their community. They had to make a choice, though, a hard one. "Do you all stand with me?" Clara's voice rang out, echoing through the room. She turned and faced the crowd, the fear in their eyes morphing into a steely resolve. "We can't just walk away and pretend this isn't happening. We have to tell the people what's really going on." Around her, heads nodded cautiously, but Clara could sense a shift. They were ready to act. But the factory manager didn't back down easily. "You'll ruin us. You'll ruin the community," he shouted. "Or we could save it," Jake said, stepping forward with Clara. "We have to be willing to stand up and be heard. The longer we wait, the more danger we're in." As Clara faced the manager again, something broke within her. The adrenaline surged, filling her with fire. "You can't keep us in the dark anymore. This is not just your factory, it's our home." The tension snapped, the collective breath of the crowd expelling in a short gasp. Clara felt the moment settle around them like a tangible force. The reality of what they had to do hung thick in the air. Then do what you must. But know this, the manager spat, the venom in his voice cutting through the resolve. Those who choose to expose the truth will never be safe again. There are consequences. But Clara's determination shone through the fear. We are stronger together and we will face whatever comes. We deserve to know and to be protected. The air crackled with unresolved emotion, and just beyond the walls of the factory, thunder rumbled ominously. As the storm outside gathered strength, Clara saw in her neighbor's eyes a wild spark of hope. Could they really take a stand against the giants? Clara took a deep breath and felt the wind of change stirring. This was only the beginning, but they were no longer shadows in the dark. When the first raindrops struck the window, Clara understood that the battle was about to begin. Would they be ready for the storm that was coming? The rain poured in torrents, a cascade of energy that mingled with the whirlpool of feelings swelling inside Clara. She could almost feel that storm outside reflecting the uproar in her heart. Each drop drummed against the roof like a call to action. The world outside was coming alive, and inside, they had to do the same. Okay, we need a plan, Jake said, his voice breaking through the rising tension. Clara turned to him, seeing the determination etched on his face, mirroring her own resolve. The factory manager had retreated to the corner, his bravado crumbling. Clara raised her voice, calling to the others in the room. Listen, if we're going to do this, we need to get organized. We can't face this storm alone. Nods of agreement surrounded her. Some whispered fears about the consequences, while others shared stories of personal experiences tied to the water they drank every day. Clara felt a surge of energy swelling through the group. They were all in this together. Let us form a committee, Clara proposed, her voice rising amid the expectant hush. We need to gather more information. Contact family members, local health departments, anyone who can help us bring the truth to light. Can we really do this? A timid voice piped up from the back. Clara turned to see an older woman, her hands trembling, gripping the back of a chair. What if we make things worse? Or what if we save lives? Clara countered, stepping into the open space where the light overhead flickered. If we do nothing, we're allowing dangers to seep into our homes, our bodies. Jake called out, they've been lying to us. We deserve the truth. The longer we hesitate, the more people get hurt. Are you with us? The weight of his words hung in the air, buoyed by the relentless rhythm of the rain outside. Clara could see hesitant nods turning into firm agreements around the room. Hope mixed with fear, creating something electric. Let us take this to the streets, Clara said, heart racing. We build a coalition, inform our community, and make sure everyone knows what is happening. We'll have community meetings. We will call the press. With each of her suggestions, she felt the collective energy shift, a fire igniting in a dark room. This was the storm she had feared, yet she sought it now as her ally. I'll help with the flyers, someone offered from the back. We've got to spread the word. And I can talk at the town hall meeting this week. Another spoke up, emboldened by the wave of courage building among them that as they began discussing plans, Clara soaked in the growing sense of unity. While uncertainty lingered in their eyes, she saw determination breaking through like sunlight piercing clouds. They were stepping into their power, refusing to be trapped by the manager's threats. But beneath that hope, Clara still felt a chill. The factory manager's warning echoed in her mind. Would they really be safe once they put their plan into action? They were raising a banner against the Goliath that had long towered over them as they dispersed to gather supplies and spread the news. Clara felt that the storm outside had changed in pitch. The window rattled as the wind howled, matching the fervor of their hearts. But as she stepped out into the downpour, the rain striking her skin as a reminder of the fight ahead, she wondered would they truly be ready for what was coming next? The storm they were faced with was not just weather, but something much darker lurking just beyond the horizon. Clara stepped into the rain, feeling each drop hit her like a reminder that change was coming. She could hear the chatter of her neighbors nearby, excitement bubbling through the air. But alongside it was a thread of fear. They were all taking a shared step into the unknown. The sound of rushing water filled her ears, blending with the heartbeat of the community surrounding her. She moved swiftly from house to house, determination fueling her actions. Door after door opened, revealing faces marked with worry. Their eyes flickered with uncertainty. But when Clara spoke, her voice steady, she could see just a glimmer of hope begin to spark. "This is our chance," she told them. "Our water, our health, our community, everything is at stake. We can't stay silent." Word spread quickly. Neighbors joined in, their voices mingling with the rhythm of the rain as they organized themselves. They printed flyers and shared stories. Each conversation deepened the bond between them, erasing the isolation they had felt for far too long. Clara felt the momentum shift, the storm outside slowly becoming a symbol of their shared resolve. Yet doubt still crept into the corners of her mind. What would the factory manager do in response? Would he retaliate? Each step closer to their goal came with a weight of potential consequences. Yet every nod of agreement from her neighbors pushed her fears aside. Their belief breathed life into her OWNBY sunset. They had set the plan. Meetings were scheduled, social media pages created, and the date of the town hall meeting circled boldly on every calendar. Clara could feel it, a palpable energy humming through the night, ignited by each heart ready to fight for change. As the first drops of evening dew settled, Clara gathered with Jake and a small group in front of her house. They spread a large map across her porch, tracing routes for their pamphlet distribution. It felt like planning a battle, and each line they drew represented a hope, a promise for a healthier future. "I'll take the east side," Jake said, pointing to a neighborhood that had been hit hard by the factory's negligence. Clara admired his resolve. He had transformed from a shy friend into a fighter for their cause. A knock at the door interrupted them. Clara opened it to find the older woman from earlier, her trembles replaced with a new kind of fire. "I want to help," she said, voice stronger now. "I've lived here forever. I won't let this happen to my family or any more of my neighbors." Tears threatened Clara's eyes as she welcomed the woman inside, grateful for the unexpected ally. Each new member strengthened their rebellion against the odds stacked against them. But as night fell, and the rain continued to pour like an unending tempest, something gnawed at the back of Clara's mind. Could they really do this? The unease around the factory manager loomed like a dark shadow, a reminder of the threat still lurking. And just as she pushed the thought aside, her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number, urgent and alarming. "We know what you're planning. Stop now. It won't end well." Clara's heart raced, dread pooling in her stomach. This was just the beginning, wasn't it? What would she do next? Would she give in to fear, or stand firm against the darkness? As Clara paced her kitchen, the message still burning in her mind, her heart thudded with disbelief. Who sent this? She could feel the walls closing in. But amidst the fear, a flicker of defiance ignited inside her. She gathered Jake, her neighbor from down the street, who had been her steadfast ally. "I got a threatening message," she told him, her voice steady but trembling slightly. "They're trying to intimidate us into silence." He frowned, concern etching lines on his forehead, but then resolve set in his gaze. "We won't let them scare us. We'll fight back harder." The night air swirled with coolness, easing Clara's rising anxiety as she stepped outside to meet her growing group. One by one, familiar faces appeared. Neighbors who had once hesitated now stood ready to join her. The energy shifted. This wasn't just about water, it was about reclaiming their community, their power. "Listen up," Clara called out, gathering everyone's attention beneath the faint glow of porch lights. "We know they're scared of us. That's why they're trying to threaten us. But we can't back down." There was a beat of silence, then a wave of nods surged through the crowd, determination brightening their eyes. Emboldened by each small victory, Clara and her group organized pop-up meetings in their neighborhoods, turning homes into informal rally spots. Armed with flyers, they educated the community about the dangers lurking in their water supply. Names piled up on petitions, lives intertwined in their shared struggle. Days turned into weeks, and as they reached the town hall meeting, tension crackled in the air. Clara could barely believe how far they had come. No longer isolated, they were a unified front. She took her place among the many, her heart pounding with mingled hope and fear. The mayor stood waiting with the factory manager beside him, smug but visibly uneasy under the weight of their numbers. Clara clenched her jaw. This needed to be their moment. She stepped up to the microphone. She scanned the room. Her neighbors were filled with fierce resolve, standing shoulder to shoulder against the looming threat. "Thank you for coming," Clara began. "We're not here to ask for your attention. We're here to demand it. We deserve answers." The crowd erupted in a chorus of agreement, their voices colliding like thunder. "What the factory has hidden from us is no longer acceptable," she continued, her voice firm and unwavering. "They poisoned our water. How many lives must be harmed before we take action?" The factory manager squirmed in his chair, the facade of control crumbling as Clara's words washed over the gathering like a tidal wave. The murmurs of displeasure grew louder, merging into a single powerful voice. "Enough is enough," someone shouted from the back, igniting an overwhelming surge of energy. "We want accountability." Clara's heart soared. This wasn't just her fight. It was their collective heart beating for justice and health. After several hours of back and forth, the mayor finally proclaimed, "We will investigate these claims. We will take this seriously." The tension in the room cracked. A wave of relief swept over Clara. But then she remembered the warning she received, and that darkness lurked. This was only the beginning. Their battle wouldn't end after this meeting, and she could see in the eyes of her neighbors the determination echoing deep within as the crowd began to disperse. Clara felt a pull at her heart. "Stay vigilant," she urged. "We need to keep fighting for our families, even when the noise fades. Let us support one another." And as they walked home, side by side, she felt the wind shift in their favor. The storm clouds scattered, revealing the first gleam of dawn, breaking a symbol of hope and resurgence, a message that they could weather this storm together. Standing in her yard, Clara looked out at the horizon, tears pooling in her eyes. They had faced fear, and together they had risen. In that moment, she realized they would stand together no matter what. United in the face of adversity, Clara felt the warmth of victory blooming in her heart, and a new thought took root. They were more than a community. They were family. And while the fight ahead was inevitable, it was a fight she now faced with unwavering courage and an empowered spirit, ready to shape the future. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next incredible stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the transformations coming. Comment your thoughts about this ending and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. This is the fight for our families and future.